Hi, third grade. I'm reading to you Chapter 6, A Thief in the Craft Shop from Runaway Ralph. At first, the sign over Ralph's cage was the cause of argument. But Aunt Jill, how come Garf is the one who gets to feed the mouse? The campers asked. I want to feed the mouse too. Why can't I feed the mouse? It isn't fair. No one else has a mouse. Aunt Jill always gave the same answer. Garf gets to feed the mouse because the mouse is his. He caught it in a butterfly net. The policy inspired some of the campers to go mouse hunting, big game hunting they called it, with butterfly nets. But when no mice were caught, enthusiasm waned, and the campers gradually lost interest. Catso followed someone into the craft shop whenever he could. And whenever he succeeded, Aunt Jill said someone had better put that cat out. Usually Lena was the one who picked up Catso and held him with his face over her shoulder as if he were a baby. Poor baby, she crooned, patting Catso on the back as if she were burping an infant. Ralph found the smug look on Catso's face most annoying. Garf was happy, but Ralph was not. The boy showed no signs of running away, and now that he abided by the rules, the two were never alone. The bars of Ralph's cage enclosed a very small area, and no matter how fast he ran on his wheel, he remained in the same place. He began to sit motionless for long periods of times when he thought more and more about the freedom he had joined back in the Mountain View Inn. He missed those long corridors and his exciting expeditions in search of food. What he had once called crumb scrounging now seemed a test of courage. He even came to admit that he missed his little brothers and sisters and cousins. They were nuisances, but they were livelier than a grumpy hamster. Perhaps he wouldn't mind giving some of the nice little mice, boy mice of course, short rides on the motorcycle after all. Most of all, Ralph missed the motorcycle. He clutched to the wires of his cage, and recalling the nights he had sped through the corridors of the old hotel while guests snored behind closed doors, tried to pretend that they were the grips of his handlebars. Puh, 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 puh. But it was no use. The wires remained what they were, the bars of a small prison. Higher but not long as an economy-sized Kleenex box, Ralph grew listless. So great was his homesickness that choice tidbits from the dining hall tempted him less and less. He sometimes skipped meals, preferring instead to crawl up in the corner under some shredded paper where he dozed, dreaming of dark nights, smooth floors, and speed. Cheer up, said Chum. You'll get used to the cage. Ralph did not answer. He wanted to be alone with his thoughts. Garf, on the other hand, no longer wanted to be alone. He came into the craft shop to tend to Ralph while the other campers were present. And soon he became interested in the tools in the shop and finally went to work with some of the other boys building wooden boats to float in the irrigation ditch. One long morning, Ralph passed the time by watching a girl named Karen. Karen was one of the older campers, a girl of 12 or 13 years old with long blonde hair, which that morning was wet. All the older girls washed their hair several times a week. Karen was making an old plastic bleach bottle into a piggy bank. She turned it on its side so the handle was on the top, glued corks in place for the legs, cut a slit under the handle, and painted eyes above the spout, which was now the piggy bank's snout. Ralph noticed that Karen paused from time to time to scratch her left arm. Finally, Karen set her paintbrush across the top of the paint jar and removed her wristwatch, which she laid on the shelf beside Ralph's cage. He could hear it tick. She scratched the spot where the watch had been, returned to her painting, and then stopped to scratch again. Karen, let me see your arm, said Aunt Jill, who was showing a boy how to lace together a wallet. Why, it looks to me like you have poison oak. You'd better go see the nurse about it, and be careful not to scratch it. But Aunt Jill, it feels so good to scratch, said Karen, tossing back her hair. I know, but scratching only spreads the poison oak and makes it worse, said Aunt Jill. Now run along and see the nurse. I'll wash out your paintbrush for you. It's almost time for the dinner bell. When the bell rang for the noon meal and the craft shop was empty, Ralph felt a fur rise along his spine. Sure enough, just as he expected, there was a curious paw of Catso exploring the hole in the screen door. Then the pink nose appeared. Catso must have pushed hard because the rusty screen gave way and the rest of his head appeared. Catso did not stop there. He pushed and wiggled until he got one shoulder, then the other through the hole. Then came Catso's front feet, followed by the rest of the beast. Catso was in the craft shop. Where was Sam? Ralph scuttled to the far edge corner of his cage, where he turned his back into the world and tried to make himself invisible. He heard Catso land lightly on the work table beneath his cage and knew that this time there was no one to scratch the cat and shove him out the door. Ralph waited, but when nothing happened, he summoned the courage to peek over his shoulder. Catso was calmly washing himself and appeared not to notice. Ralph was not fooled for an instant. He knew Katso was aware of every move he made. Drat that cat, he thought bitterly, as his heart beat faster than the tick of a watch on the shelf beside his cage. Katso licked his right paw over it with great care and began to wash his right ear. That's right, thought Ralph. Take your time. He was worn out from bracing himself from the pounce that did not come. A real war of nerves, he thought. Just what the cat wants. He's got me where he wants me, and he knows it. Katso groomed his left paw, currying his fur neatly in the direction of his toes. He used his teeth to pull bits of dried mud from between his paw pads and then began to scrub his left ear. Well, come on, thought Ralph. Get it over. You don't have to be neat. He would just as soon be knocked off the shelf by a cat with dirty ears as a cat with clean ears. Katso finished washing, looked at Ralph, and glanced away. Ralph, who was familiar with that maneuver, thought, here it comes. But this time, Ralph was mistaken. Katso's attention had been caught by the leather strap of the wristwatch hanging over the edge of the shelf. He tapped it with curious paws and watched it swing back and forth. Ralph's blood chilled as claws appeared from the exploring paw that batted the strap once more. Then the claws hooked the watch strap and dragged the watch down to the work table. Why, that stupid cat actually thinks the watch band is a tail, Ralph thought in astonishment. Katso sat very still, listening to the watch tick. He battled experimentally with his paws, but the watch lay as still as any terrified mouse. While Ralph watched in fascination, Katso picked up the watch in his mouth, and with the strap hanging down like a tail, leaped from the table on the first floor where he dropped the watch, batted about, picked it up again, and slipped out through the door's hole in the screen door. Ralph ventured out the corner with his shaking paws clung to the wires of the cage to see what would happen next. And there's a picture of Katso with a watch in his hand. Katso played with the watch a while in the bamboo leaves, but when the cook, with a pan of scraps in hand, opened the kitchen door, the greedy animal dropped the watch and ran off to be fed. The watch slid in the smooth bamboo husk until it came to rest, hidden from sight under some leaves. Talk about close calls, said Chum. Stupid cat, said Ralph in a weak voice. Ralph was dazed by the whole experience, but he noticed Garf leave the dining hall when the campers began to sing one of the favorite songs. Up in the air, Junior Birdman, up in the air, upside down. Up in the air, Junior Birdman, keep your noses off the ground. Come into the craft shop, Ralph pleaded silently. True to his promise, Aunt Jill, the boy, did not enter the craft shop, but sat alone with his thoughts, twirling idly in the tire suspended from one of the trees, and singing his own private tune. When you hear the doorbell ringing and you see the badge of tin, you'll know the Junior Birdmen have turned their box tops in. Birdmen, yeah. Before long, Karen, her left arm covered with white lotion, came running into the craft shop with two of her friends. My watch, she cried, sending Ralph scuttling into the corner. It's gone. Somebody must have taken it, said one of her friends, the older girl who was wearing polished English riding boots. I bet it was Garf Jernigan, said the second friend. I bet it was too, said the girl in the English riding boots. I saw him leave the dining hall early. She brushed dust from her toe of the boot. Girls who owned English riding boots were proud of them and shined them often. Karen tried to be fair. We don't know it was Garf. We didn't see him come in here. The girls crowded out through the screen door to meet Aunt Jill, who had paused on her way to the shop to talk to someone. Aunt Jill, they cried. Karen's watch is gone. Aunt Jill, we have a mystery, cried Lana, who had shrugged off the older girls in her dirty cowboy boots. She liked the dirt on her boots, which showed that she was not a newcomer to camp. Everyone wanted to hear about the missing watch. Campers crowded around Aunt Jill and the three girls. Through an open window, Ralph could hear snatches of the conversation. Aunt Jill, I'm sure I left it on the shelf beside the mouse cage. I'm positive. Looked every place, and I saw Garf, and it was my birthday present. Searched the lodges. He sneaks out of the dining hall, hasn't ever been excused from the table. And now girls. This was Aunt Jill. Well, I don't care. He acts funny. The cat really has fixed things now, thought Ralph, as the campers gathered on the benches in the old school desks under the walnut tree. One of the counselors led the singing, and then Aunt Jill stepped on the platform. Campers, I have some unhappy news today, she began. Karen's watch is missing from the craft shop, where she is sure she laid it on the shelf. It was not an expensive watch, but it was a birthday present to Karen, and she would like very much to have it back. Here, Karen nodded her head vigorously, and Aunt Jill went on. We are going to do a search in the lodges. As someone suggested, we are going to let the person who took the watch return it, because it's the right thing to do. A lot Katso cares about doing the right thing, thought Ralph. He heard Garf, who was sitting on the bench, say angrily at the boy in front of him, What are you looking at me for? Aunt Jill continued, no one needs to know who took the watch. It can be returned to the shelf in the craft shop when no one is looking, or to my desk in the office. We are not interested in who took the watch. We want it returned to Karen because returning is the right thing to do. After Aunt Jill's speech, the campers began to sing You Are My Sunshine. Garth slipped away from the rest of the campers as Aunt Jill had suggested, sat down by himself behind a clump of bamboo. This afternoon was the first time Ralph had seen him sit there. You make me happy, sang the campers. You haven't made me, Garth, happy, thought Ralph, wishing that Garth were sitting on the other side of the bamboo near the craft shop door where he might find the watch by accident. That boy is really in trouble, remarked Chum. Ralph turned in surprise. I thought you were asleep under your cedar shavings, he remarked. That's what I make them think, said Chum. I didn't miss a thing. What's your opinion of the case? Asked Ralph, who knew the right words to use in such a situation from watching so many television programs in the lobby of the Mountain View Inn. I think that boy is in a tight spot, said Chum. Everyone knows he used to come into the craft shop when no one is here. And they know he is still the first person to leave the dining hall. So naturally, everyone thinks he took the watch. There's a picture of him, Garth, sitting by the trees. That's the way I figured it, agreed Ralph. And I can tell you one thing, continued Chum. He's not going to come in here after the craft shop until that watch is found. But what about me, squeaked Ralph in dismay, thinking of the sign above his cage. Nobody feeds me. I'll starve. I'll try to toss you an alfalfa pellet once in a while, said Chum generously. My aim isn't very good, but I should be able to get one into your cage now and then, enough to keep you going. Going where? Wondered Ralph. No place. What was to become of him when summer ended and all the campers went home? Would Garth take him away, or would everyone forget about him and leave him to starve? He did not want to spend the rest of his life in cages, and he certainly did not want to be kept alive on a few cast-off alfalfa pellets, only to starve at the end of the summer. This was just one answer. Ralph had to escape. The campers finished their rousing chorus of You Are My Sunshine when Ralph's sharp ears caught the sound that had him on his feet in an instant. Put. It was the sound the boys used to make a toy motorcycle go. It was made softly by a boy alone in his thoughts. Garth had found Ralph's motorcycle. Hey, squeaked Ralph at the top of his voice. That's my motorcycle. Garth stopped pushing the motorcycle across the bamboo leaves just long enough to make Ralph think he might have heard. Then, to Ralph's disappointment, he put the motorcycle in the pocket of his jeans and went off towards his lodge for the rest period required of all campers. Ralph was so excited he left the bars of his cage and went to run for his wheel. Garth spoke his language. He knew how to make the motorcycle go. There was hope after all. All Ralph had to do was to explain to Garth. As Ralph thought the matter over, his exercise wheel moved more and more slowly until it came to a stop. Ralph sat back on his hunches. His plan would not work until Garth was cleared of the theft of the watch. He was not going to risk coming into the craft shop. Ralph had to agree that Chum was right. And that concludes Chapter 6.